Good morning and welcome to Market Opening on our collab show between Business Today and India Today TV. Just after 9, and we're here to get you all the news that you need to kickstart your trading day. Let's take a look at what's making headlines this morning. It could be a gap-up opening for markets with Q2 GDP growth far beyond anyone's imagination. The gift Nifty is up more than 100 points. Asian markets, most of them red, could play spoilsport. The possibility of a ratings upgrade could also bring back a flood of foreign funds. Silver leaps past the 2 lakh rupee per kilo mark for the first time ever, hits a new high in global markets as well. The price has almost doubled this year, with the recent surge supported by renewed concerns of tightness in the global market. Gold also crosses the 1,30,000 per 10 gram level. Primary markets on an overdrive with 15 IPOs hitting the street this week. E-commerce platform Meesho leads with a 5,421 crore rupee issue. The SME segment is super active with 12 IPOs. A total of more than 7,000 crore is being raised by companies. Investors are also watching closely with 6 listings on the calendar this week. Government to bring in 2 bills to retire the GST cess on tobacco items. The Health Security National Security Cess Bill 2025 will be introduced in Parliament today. Additional levy will also be imposed on tobacco products by amending the Central Excise Act. The new levy will replace the compensation cess under the GST regime. No changes in effective rates. Elon Musk opens up in Nikhil Kamath's podcast, accuses some companies of gaming the H-1B visa systems, says visas should not be about reducing costs but plugging the talent gap. Also says Donald Trump loves tariffs and he tried to unsuccessfully dissuade the president on that front. All right, let's take a look at how markets are set up this morning. And first and foremost, we'll be waiting the reaction to those GDP numbers, kicking it out of the ballpark there with numbers coming in way above anyone's expectation. I think the highest view was about 7.5 when we saw numbers come in at a 6-quarter high of 8.2%. So that's really the big picture for you this morning. In other data, India April to October fiscal deficit up about 10% year on year as well. July to September earnings, of course, will be kicking off as well. So that's some of the macro data we're tracking. But let me welcome in Shail. Shail, good morning. I'm not sure if we'll really be shaken by anything that's happening in Asian markets this morning. I know China's had a bit of a wobble, but it's our own GDP numbers that are front and center, anticipating now a fresh round of brokerage upgrades.
Abha, good morning. First of all, a very warm welcome to everybody in December. This is the start of a Santa rally. This is going to be a gap up, most probably a trend day in which the Nifty opens with a gap of 122 points and then progresses steadily up throughout the day. So a fresh closing high. Stocks like HDFC Bank, L&T, Reliance, M&M, Adani Ports are looking extremely strong on the charts. These are also in fact market leaders, at least the 4 that I've talked about. And you'll see a strong move coming into the digital space, especially the defense sector. Look at Bharat Forge. And of course, the underlying momentum is very strong for pharma as well. So that's the broader structure: a gap up, a trending day, and Nifty closing at its day's high, a record close. Abha.
I'm surprised you didn't mention auto this morning, Shail. We've been talking about it all week, anticipating December sales numbers. But let me also welcome in Avinash Goyal joining us this morning. Avinash, first on the index, of course, your view. And then, yes, we're kickstarting December. So are we poised to see some traction along certain fronts, whether it be on the back of those GDP earnings, rate cut hopes, and, of course, auto sales figures? Avinash, good morning. If you can hear me, wanted to get your view on the setup this morning as well as what you're focused on as we kickstart December.
Yeah, Abha, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Let me go back across to Avinash in just a moment. Let me come back to really what we're looking at in terms of the trade setup and pull up some of the other pockets of action for you. Auto, of course, is in the news in terms of November auto sales data. We've also got some select counters that are likely to be in the news. M&M, Ashok Leyland. Keep an eye on some of these as well, in particular from the auto pack. Tata Motors, for instance. Tata Motors and M&M have written to the Union Power Minister as well, talking about a proposed exemption for petrol cars under the 909 kilograms mark for the upcoming carbon dioxide emission regulations, saying this would be a setback for the country's EV journey. So that's something that's ongoing. M&M has been in news for other reasons as well. And of course, we'll keep an eye on sales data. Now, when it comes to some of the other pockets, OMCs, remember, on the softening of crude, have also been seeing a good run up and they're continuing to look bullish. So that's on OMCs as well. We've been seeing some buying at lower levels when it comes to IT, metals, telecom. So some of these pockets could continue to see further traction building up as well. Let me see if Avinash can hear us now. And Avinash, I wanted to get your view on the market setup as we kickstart the trading week as well as a fresh month. Okay, I think
can you please
there's
repeat
a
your
problem
question,
with the
please?
audio there with Avinash, so we'll leave it there. But we're counting down to opening right now, and let's take a look at, what else is going to be in focus. I think last week, Shail, there was a lot of pushback from retail investors talking about how action was still focused on the index, on the heavyweights. So when it comes to this week, while we're still looking at new highs, remember last week we did hit some new highs, but then we were extremely sideways and facing resistance at higher levels. Do you think we're going to manage to break that on the index? And then, of course, we'll talk about wider participation.
None of the mid-cap, small-cap, mid-cap select indices are coming anywhere near scanners that show the momentum is getting into them. Frankly, it's a large-cap led rally, and that's how it is for the moment.
Okay.
Let's see how it goes. There's this earnings discount of about 10-15% in all large caps. Once that's paired as far as price is concerned, then maybe the focus will shift to mid and smalls. Frankly, nothing is coming on a lot of my scanners that I put in as far as mids and smalls are concerned. So we'll have to be satisfied with the blue chips hitting fresh record highs.
All right, let's take a look at the kind of stocks that we have in news as well. We're, of course, watching out for a spate of listings and a spate of IPOs that are coming in at this point of time. Of course, we've got a whole host of individual stocks that will also be in focus. Defense stocks, as Shail mentioned as well, will continue to be in the limelight. And Defense Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh on Friday said the Ministry of Defense will be seeking a 20% rise in defense modernization component for the coming financial year. That's double than the usual 10% rise in previous years. So keep an eye on those defense stocks. They'll continue to be in focus. They also signed letters of offer and acceptance with the US government for sustained support of the Indian Navy's fleet as well, of helicopters and a lot of other things. Approximate value of 80 billion coming in there. So we continue to see very strong momentum in terms of order book building up on defense stocks there. Let's we've seen a lot of action also when it comes to hospitality names, when it's coming to news, real estate counters. So let's take you through some of that. In terms of hospitality, and keep an eye on this because it looks like the government may be considering infrastructure status for the hotel industry, and that's going to be huge. Remember, we're also counting down to budget now. So some of these key reforms will be much awaited and watched by various industry pockets. Hotel industry will definitely be eyeing this in particular. And in addition to that, we're of course constantly getting news on real estate stocks that are planning further outlay as well. We've had a whole host of them in the news last week, this week as well. We've got Lodha developers planning to launch 15 housing projects worth about 140 billion. That's in the second half of the fiscal to expand its business. There you have opening trade, 0.3% higher, 26,288 on the Nifty right now. We were expecting a marginal uptick, and that's come in, but it's not a runaway rally on those GDP numbers. It's kind of a steady start, but clearly not too much of an impact of the low numbers that we've seen on factory activity in China. So we did see China's factory activity unexpectedly contracting, missing estimates. Asia's quiet this morning. Limited impact of that on our markets today. But on the GDP numbers, we're also not seeing a major runaway reaction right now. Auto is steady. Remember, it's the start of December. We're expecting very strong, very positive sales momentum coming in on the auto pack. So keep an eye on some of the individual movers there as well. Let's pull up Tata Motors. Let's pull up M&M. Ashok Leyland also, the company's UAE arm has incorporated its wholly owned subsidiary in Saudi Arabia. That one continues to be in the news as well. Let's pull up the Adani counters. Adani Enterprises has said it's going to invest as much as 5 billion in Google's artificial intelligence hub in Vishakhapatnam. Let's pull up Adani Enterprises for you. Up about a 0.5% uptick coming in there. Let's also take a look at some of the smaller counters. Actually, before we do that, let's pull up the OMCs and see where they're at on softening crude prices. Any sustained uptick coming in on some of those OMCs. Let's take a closer look there, as well as potentially on some of the telecom stocks where we've also seen action building. OMC is looking strong, or oil and gas index is up about 0.5%. Adani Total's up about 0.5%, and we'll pull up some of those telecom names for you as well after this. Shail, what are you tracking on opening?
Well, Abha, the gap up is in place and HDFC Bank is the top traded counter. This is a very, very big positive. Remember, this is the heaviest weighted stock that we have. Metals are doing fine. Hindustan Zinc and National Aluminium, which we've pointed out all of last week, they should do well. State Bank in top shape. I see it above, getting into 4 digits maybe this week. And of course, Hero Motors, fresh record high, two-wheeler stock, 1.2% higher. M&M fresh record high, best four-wheeler stock 37.80, and of course no stopping Muthoot Finance because of gold, and Federal Bank again a gold play, and in the pharma space Laurus Labs doing immensely well after a fresh record high. This is what I'm watching. Abha, advanced decline ratio fairly positive for the start, 1800 shares in the green, 625 in the red. This is an easy 3:1.
We're definitely seeing very strong advanced decline ratio this morning. It's looking good in that sense. Remember, markets also trading at really good levels at this point. You know, we're at all-time highs, frankly, 26,289. It looks like 26,300 is just a few minutes away, Shail. There doesn't seem to be any doubt of that coming in. Let's talk about that for a moment, because when we're talking about topping these all-time high levels, what is the next level you're looking to close at?
Abha, I would imagine 26,350 is within sight because the trend day will start fairly shortly in the first 15-17 minutes of trade. When you have the first candle of the 15 minutes, then institutional guys will sort of move out, retail will move in. So let's hope 26,350 is where we end today, and that's the beginning of a fresh Santa rally on the markets led by frontline counters. Nothing is happening in mids and smalls.
All right, so mid and small cap, I'm afraid retail investors will still have to wait for their turn, even though the IPO street's looking really busy. So those interested in the primary markets have a lot to choose from. Avinash, let me come across to you, and hopefully we've solved that audio issue. What is your take on the markets as we kickstart the last month of the year?
No, I think, good morning, Abha. I think markets are going to be obviously in a uptrend largely because GDP numbers have been much better than what the street expected. And I think now the next trigger for the market would be the December 5 credit policy. I think markets have already built in a 25 basis cut. And I think if that happens, then I think that's going to boost the sentiment further. As Shail mentioned, you're going to see a lot of banks, NBFCs, housing finance companies, obviously doing a pretty kind of rally. And I think it's going to be definitely benefiting the corporate sector because that means that the fourth quarter numbers also should be reasonably good. In fact, we are looking forward for a very strong Q3 number because the full impact of GST, rural demand, lower interest rates would obviously get reflected in better corporate performance for the quarter 3 period. So I think net the market should rise. But I think you could see a little sustained kind of rise with a little bit of slower, volatility. But I think net, I think it's also going to be a stock pickers market. As you mentioned, hotels, hospitality, capital goods, auto components are sectors, which are definitely drawing a lot of money from the funds as well as from the ultra HNIs.
All right, great. Sterling and Wilson is in focus. Let's pull that up for you. Remember, they have got an order from Adani Green Energy. So let's pull that one up for you. And that's definitely buzzing in trade. And metals seem to be on a tear this morning across the board, or is it specifically on copper? Is it across the board, Shail, that you're finding this action when it comes to metal majors?
Well, Abha, one interesting thing about the Nifty Metals Index I'd like to point out, it is well above even Friday's high. So not only is there a gap up, there is also sustained activity on the long side. So it's across the board. Look at Vedanta, 1.5% higher. National Aluminium, we've already marked. On the copper space, Hind Copper is doing pretty well, 2.5% higher. And of course, JSW Steel. So it's ferrous, non-ferrous, aluminium, all up.
Okay, so metals across the board. Avinash, let's get your take here, because we've been seeing that steady rise. We've been seeing it on precious metals too, and that's continuing. They're on fire. And metals across the board, aluminium, copper, everything is moving this morning.
So I think metals definitely look to be in a much better shape. I think domestic demand is strong, and I think global metal prices, especially for aluminum, have started rising. So I think in that perspective, Hindalco definitely looks interesting. I think my sense is that the third quarter and the fourth quarter could possibly see some improvement. Of course, they had a fire in their plant, so there could be a little bit of pressure on their margins, at least for the Q3. We believe that once these one-off things are taken out, I think Hindalco could be a good bet. The other ferrous counters which we are positive are typically Tata Steel and Hindustan Zinc. These companies have been doing pretty well. Even on the copper side, Hindustan Copper could be looked upon, because copper prices have also started rising quite sharply. So net, I think it could be a good market for positional traders going forward.
Anything in the pharma pack? Avinash, Natco is up again today, up about 3%. So I'm pulling it up just because we've seen some of these individual movers come up from behind. Do you feel that this could be a dark horse?
Yeah, I think my sense is that, I think they're a large player in the US market, and I think the stock has risen quite admirably. So Natco definitely categorizes as a small US-based focused kind of pharma company from India. And I think other larger names could be Lupin, could be Torrent Pharma. We have been telling our clients to, do a little bit of nimbling in the pharma side, because we feel that once the US-India trade deal is finalized, which is expected very soon, you could expect a very strong run-up on the pharma side, specifically for companies which have got a large exposure on the US market. So I think Lupin and Natco Pharma could definitely be acquired, but from a slightly medium to long-term kind of time frame.
Let's pull up those Adani counters again. Adani Green is lower at this point of time with very heavy volumes. And Sterling and Wilson on the back of that order is moving up 4-5%. That's the one that's really looking good and very high on volumes as well this morning. Shail, what's on your radar?
Well, Abha, I think the first 15 minutes of selling pressure has been absorbed, which essentially means that all those guys who took a long punt on the market on Friday in anticipation of good GDP numbers, that selling has been absorbed. Now 26,300 looks to be doing pretty well. So banks are doing extremely well. Bank of Baroda and Bank of India is something that is on my radar, as also Canara Bank. A bit of profit booking in AU Bank and Axis Bank in early trades, but nothing to be worried about. I'll keep an eye out on State Bank of India and of course Hindustan Zinc. Remember, Hindustan Zinc is the biggest producer of silver in India, which is rocketing. So Hindustan Zinc should be watched on the long side. I think 500 is what we've already seen. Avinash here would be better placed to give us an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I've lost Avinash's audio there. We'll come back to him in a moment. And lots of IPOs. Let me just take you through that. We've got MV Electrosystems, Equus, Vidya Wires, Misho, Prism, for instance, Sudeep Pharma. So many IPOs and listings this week, so lots to track there. That's also keeping the markets on their toes. And Bajaj Auto sales numbers, let's take a look at them. Coming in, November sales 4,53,273 units. That's up 8% year on year. Bajaj Auto November two-wheeler sales also up 3% year on year. Total CV sales up 37%. That's a big number coming in. 37% year on year. So we've got overall sales for November up about 8%. Two-wheelers up about 3%, and CV sales up about 37% for Bajaj Auto. Those are year-on-year numbers coming in. Let's pull up the stock for you, see how it's reacting to the November sales numbers. And remember, we were expecting a boost, continuing run-up post the GST reforms, as well as, of course, the impending rate cuts on some of these consumer names. Let's take a look at how some of the traction is building up on a Bajaj in particular. And let's pull up the stock for you as well. And we've seen some amount of traction building up on two-wheeler hopes too, but it's not actually the two-wheeler numbers that are driving the show at the moment. It's more the CV numbers. Not too much move on the stock just as yet, Shail, but clearly momentum when it comes to auto is clearly on.
Yes, Abha, I would imagine that you will see a lot of activity on Mahindra and Mahindra, Maruti in particular. Let the numbers come. Hero Motors has already hit a record high. So 4 stocks in the auto space which should demand your attention: M&M, Hero Motors, Maruti, Ashok Leyland, and maybe, just maybe, Eicher Motors. So these are the ones that I'm looking at because the charts are phenomenally strong.
Okay, that's almost all of them, Shail. But if you had to narrow it down to at least 2, which 2 would it be?
Okay, Maruti and Hero Motors.
All right, taking a clear view there on some of the strategy going forward. Hero has been in the news for a lot of its new upcoming launches, as has Maruti. In fact, a spate that's planned for the new year. We'll perhaps take a deeper dive into some of those auto counters on the upcoming show. But Hero right now is up about 1% or so in trade as we await the latest numbers there as well. All right, and in other global news, remember President Putin is also visiting India this week. There'll be discussions of India purchasing Russian fighter jets and a missile defense shield. So we'll, of course, be bringing you any updates on that front. And we'll leave you with the latest look at silver as well. Silver has crossed the 2 lakh mark and it's just spiraling. The global silver surge continuing. And look at the kind of rates that we're seeing on the COMEX overnight. Gold prices are also seeing that kind of an uptick as well. But silver is definitely shooting ahead and is on fire right now. Avinash, closing comments from you as we eye now some amount of news when it comes to the trade deal or the Fed rate cut. All right, Avinash left us, but yes. The growth numbers have been intact when it comes to GDP figures. The government is reinforcing that we're on track to achieve steady momentum. We'll now be eyeing, of course, the latest news from the RBI as well as the Fed. So stay tuned. Lots more coming up. Thanks for watching.